be talking about financing, especially for SMEs. Thank you very much to have lasted the whole day and coming here to brainstorm with our panelists and see what will be the best ways to finance SMEs and African SMEs in the ag space. So we will start by welcoming the different panelists. I'll start with Mrs. Oluyemisi Ilanuyole. Welcome to the stage. She is probably some round of applause to her. She's the CEO of Saltry International from Nigeria and the basically largest cassava processing plant. So this, so then I will call also Madam Ruth Zaipuna. A round of applause. She's the CEO of NNB Bank. And I will call Marie-Ange Mukagahima. Round of applause for her. You can sit on this side. Here you go. And we will have basically the second startup and SME, which is Mrs. Sila from Zimbabwe. Welcome. A round of applause. Come here. Oh, sorry, next to the CEO of NM Bank. And we have also Mrs. Ogola Lois Kange. Welcome. Round of applause. And we have Abraham Andreas. A round of applause from Ethiopia. Now that you're all around, there is one seat missing. Sorry? That's okay? All right. So now that you are all around, I think what Ruth was suggesting is probably you guys switch. Marie-Ange, you can come this side, and Abraham, you can go on the other side. I guess all good now. I followed the protocol, at least I've tried. So let's do a round of presentations. As I mentioned, we have Oluyemisi. She's the CEO of Saltry International in Nigeria, one of the largest cassava processing plants, not only in Nigeria, but I think in Africa when it comes to the level of processing capacity. And we have also the CEO of NN Bank, Ruth Zaipuna, which is one of the largest banks in Tanzania. So we are honored to have both of you and be ready for the questions. And we have actually a series of amazing startups really impacting the agri-space. We have Marie-Ange Mukagahima, who is the CEO and the founder of Zima Health Group from Rwanda. We have Ogola Lois Kange, who is the CEO of Smiley's Kitchen from Nigeria. And we have Silalekwele Bonfana from Zimbabwe, who is the founder of Tarima Vegetables. And we have Abraham Andreas, who is the founder and the managing director of Green Agro Solutions and Leisure Platform. And my understanding today we'll be talking about leisure. All right. So we'll start with, this is how this session will be structured to make it more interactive. So we'll have videos. Basically, the session will be split into two. We'll have the first round, which will be these two fantastic entrepreneurs on my left, and who will be presenting the different SMEs and challenges they are facing through videos. They will be 2-minute videos. Later on, they will be asking questions to Yemisi in terms of how to learn from her experience in financing and dealing with financial institutions. And we'll have now a round of questions I'll be asking to the three of them. And after that, we'll have a similar sub-session, which now will be focused on Ruth Zeipuna, where we'll have Abraham and Sila presenting the companies through short videos. And after the short videos, which I think is just 2 minutes each, and after that, we'll have questions which will be addressed to Ruth by the two entrepreneurs. And after that, we'll have a round of questions involving the three CEOs, and then we'll finish by that. So I think we're good to go. So we are about to see the first video, and if I am seeing it in order, it's the one for Zima Health. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. Over to you guys.
Zima envisioned to create social health and environmental impact by producing excellent, healthy, and cosmetic products by adding value to the recently neglected plant called pumpkins. We provide farmers input and technical support to the rural women farmers and youth, and we buy the harvest and we process that harvest at our processing facility in Kigali, and we add value to the premium product, including extra virgin oils, cookies and snacks and seed, roasted pumpkin seed, and also a pumpkin seed flour. Our products are delicious, accessible, easy to use, healthy product with sustainable impact on people and environment. Our pumpkins are hand-picked from field of Rwanda and East Africa, and our products are free from cholesterol, no additives, no preservative. They are gluten-free, and they are packed into environmental-friendly packaging. As Zima team, we really enjoy our customer feedback, and we take them as the energizer to continue doing what we do and improve. Our core values are to always listen to our customer needs and handle them, always maintain the quality of what we do, and also always being on the top of our innovation and quality. Zima and
Thank you very much. That was the first video. We can show the second video, which will be in line with Smiley's Kitchen activities.
I'm Ogolalo Iskangi, the CEO of Smiley's Mobile Kitchen Limited, an agro-food processing business realizing the potential from small, older farmer post-harvest losses, especially in tomatoes, where we process the tomatoes into paste, giving it a longer shelf life along with other products which we produce. 40% of the tomatoes we produce in Nigeria never even makes it to the market, despite our huge agricultural land and resources. So tackling the problem of post-harvest losses in the agricultural sector, especially in the tomato value chain from farm to table, is at the core of our business, and we have trained hundreds of farmers and cottage processors, especially women, and we are not stopping until we achieve food security and affordable good food for the continent and beyond. However, one of the limitations to achieving our goals is financing. There is a huge gap of the missing middle class of entrepreneurs who are too big for the small loans and yet too small for the big investors to fund. We find ourselves in the group of SMEs and MSMEs who have a lot to offer but lack the financial resources to achieve this, with good products but lacking the capacity to scale and to reach new markets because of the economic challenges. There is a high cost of transportation, logistics, high cost of energy to power equipment, and the rising regulatory costs and taxes. There is also the challenge of getting seedlings and particularly financing the farmers for their inputs and a sustainable alternative or cheaper seedlings for the farmers. We have also explored various innovative uses of our product waste to generate revenue, such as using the seedlings of dates as a tea substitute, amongst others. We are constantly looking at ways of bringing new products while utilizing the current resources, increasing the sustainability of the business. You can find our products in supermarkets and retail stores across the country. Thank you. I'm Ogolalo Iskangi, the CEO of Smiley's Mobile Kitchen Limited, an agro-food processing business.
Thank you very much. So that was the presentation of the two companies, Zima Health Group and Smiley's Kitchen. So I'm turning to these two ladies, and I guess as you all know, in Africa, there's a big gap when it comes to SME financing. Just to have one number out of this room, the SME financing gap in Africa is beyond $300 billion. And actually, IFC will go in more in detail, $331 billion. Just to get kind of an idea of how that's translating to wealth. So basically, you take Bill Gates' wealth with Jeff Bezos and put together, that's the gap in terms of SME financing. Or is the Kenyan GDP times 3. So it's basically humongous. And that's why we have these fantastic discussions today. Turning to these two fantastic entrepreneurs, and starting with Marie-Ange, can you summarize within 2 minutes what kind of challenges, the biggest challenges your company is facing currently? Over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Marie-Ange Mukagaima. I am founder and CEO of Zima Healthy Group, a healthy food processing company based in Rwanda. My business, like all other small business, we face different challenges, especially when it comes to the African young business. We do not have role models. We do not have people to encourage us. It seems like we in Africa, as young businesses, we are the only role model of ourselves to lead where we don't know where we want to be. To be like Jack Ma, to be like Bill Gates, why we do not have those Bill Gates in Africa to lead us. So the only people around us to help are like government institutions. And we wish to be the one to finance in our businesses. Sometimes they do not even understand what we do or how, because we are not in the same shoes. So we wish policymakers around the world to understand our journey and to bear with us, because being a young entrepreneur in Africa, especially in East Africa, it's a complicated thing, even for our families. The culture matter. If in the family they don't know what business is, even if you can generate $5 as sales, they will request you to buy sell for salt, for cooking, not to invest again in the business. So we need the skills. We need people who are piloting us in the being real successful professional business people, not people who just produce for my district only, people who can export. We need to see the business where I can see in my business in 100 years, not survive like 2 years, 3 years, yes, and collapse. No, yeah. We need people who can lead us for 10 years, 100 years, and my grandchildren will be also benefit from what I am doing right now.
Thank you very much, Marie-Ange. So if I need to summarize, lack of role models and lack of SMB understanding. Over to you, Ogola. What are the biggest challenges your fantastic company is facing? Smiley's Kitchen, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ogola Lois Kange, and I am the CEO of Smiley's Mobile Kitchen Limited. Like has been shown in the video, one of the things that has been limiting my business, unlike SMEs in Nigeria, is, of course, financing. I've said it time and time again that you find out that when you meet big investors, big people that are ready to finance businesses, they want to know how much revenue you've been able to generate and how much traction you have. But after you have grown to a particular level in terms of whatever it is you're doing, there is only
Veg
so much you
team.
can go without
Grey
additional
oyster
funding.
mushrooms.
So how do we
Trees
get to that
produces tree
next level
seedlings.
if
Both companies'
this
visions align.
big investors are saying, oh, the cap we have for investments in any sector or in this sector is so maybe $10 million and above, or $500 million and above. Meanwhile, there are SMEs that are looking for smaller amounts. Of course,
the heart of
there are
agriculture,
microfinance
where
banks
livelihoods
and
bloom,
there are
one digital platform
typical
is
financial
transforming the
institutions
landscape
that have very
for
high
smallholder farmers in
interest
Ethiopia.
rates that, small businesses
Meet
that are trying to
Lesha,
scale
the
cannot afford
agricultural
to take such
marketplace
money
that's not
to
just
invest
connecting
in
farmers,
capex,
but empowering them.
but then they cannot give you that.
At the
You
core
can't
of Lesha's
access that
mission
kind of
is
large
access to
amount
finance
from
as
these
part
other
of offering one-stop digital
typical
solutions.
investors, or
We
whether they are
understand that
venture
for smallholder
capitalists or people
farmers,
seeking to
financial
give out
inclusion
to
can be
take
a game
equity in your
changer.
business because they feel
With
like the amount you're
Lesha,
looking
farmers
for is
gain
really
access
small.
to
So those are some of the
agricultural
challenges,
services
and we
such
need
as
funding
inputs,
for our
mechanization,
farmers.
and
So, for
agroclimate
example, we
advisory,
have
where the Lesha agents facilitate
farmers,
access to finance through
women farmers
personalized
in
credit
the
scoring.
north who we
Use
actually
transactional
give
and
inputs
digital
and
data
seedlings
to create
grow, and then we
unique credit
take from
profiles
them.
for each farmer
Sometimes
and
you don't
connect them
even
to
have,
financial institutions.
the basic minimum to be able to
This
support these
revolutionary
farmers,
system
and without
allows us
them
to offer
farming
input
at
loans
some particular
tailored to
times of
specific
the year,
needs
you
and
know, for
capacities of
example,
individual
tomatoes, which
farmers,
is the main thing we
gearing
process,
towards
is a
productivity
seasonal
and
crop
improved
and it
income.
grows within 4 to 5 months of the year. And then you
That's
find
not
out that
all.
the
We go a
timeline
step
for
further
some
by
of these
bundling
institutions
financial
to go through all
services
their due
with
process
insurance
is
offerings.
sometimes 3
This
months.
provides farmers
and you
with
don't
added
have
security,
that kind
especially
of
in the
time.
face
So
of
those are some of the
unpredictable
challenges that we
factors
face
like
in our
weather
own.
events.
And I would like to, of course,
Lesha
learn from
isn't about
Madam
transactions,
Yemisi
it's about
a lot of what
transformation.
she has to say
We're
for,
empowering smallholder farmers to
businesses
invest
like ours that are
confidently,
struggling to
protect
scale,
their
to
agricultural
move from,
endeavors, and build
just being an
brighter
SME
futures
on
by
an
providing
SME to
dynamic
building a
agroclimate
much more
advisory
sustainable
and fertilizer
business. Thank you.
recommendations.
Fantastic. Thank you very
Our
much.
commitment does not
So
stop
we have
there.
understood,
Lesha has a dedicated call
in summary,
center with friendly
Ogola, what
agents
you've
across
tried
different
to
localities
say
ready
is
to
that
assist
we don't
farmers
have
every
small
step of the
tickets
way.
size in terms
We're
of
not doing
financing
this
for
alone.
SMEs.
We're
That's
proud
one
to
of the
work
biggest
with
challenges.
dedicated team,
And if now we
work
go
with
even
partners, and
lower
most
in terms of the
importantly, the
pyramid, we
farmers
don't
themselves.
have the proper
Together, we're sowing the
financing
seeds
for
of
smaller
financial
farmers.
inclusion, one
So,
transaction at
okay,
a time.
well noted.
Join us on
So
this
now
journey.
to our
Visit our
mentors.
website to learn more
I
about
guess
how Lesha is
Marie-Ange, now you
unlocking
have
access to finance
actually
and
two role
transforming
models.
agriculture for smallholder
They are
farmers.
sitting on the stage, Yemisi and Ruth. So I guess we can tick that one. And this is your round of question. Marie-Ange, you can ask the question you have for Yemisi when it comes to the financing major challenges and how to tackle them. Over to you.
Thank you so much. When it comes to the financing for
Both
SMEs,
purchase
it's
trees,
also a bigger
and skilled
problem, and
labor
I
is
wish
employed
to
and
ask,
training is sidelined because skilled equipment and
to
off-grid power
access to
systems.
finance is
ERP
a major
systems are
challenge
crucial
for
to measure
SMEs
business.
and the startups in the agriculture sector and food processing value chain.
Sihlahla
What is
trees
the
and Silla
strategy
vegetables
and
are
the
based in
resources
Zimbabwe.
can
Silla vegetables
business like
produces
mine,
grey
for
oyster mushrooms.
example,
Sihlahla
leverage
trees
to
produces
secure
tree seedlings.
funding
Both companies
for growth and sustainability? Thank you.
Over to you, Yemisi.
In the heart of agriculture, where
First of all, let
livelihoods
me
bloom, one digital
congratulate
platform
you
is
two
transforming the
ladies
landscape
for a good job,
for
well
smallholder
done.
farmers in
I was
Ethiopia.
looking at your video. I mean, I've
Meet
looked at it
Lesha,
like
the
10 times
agricultural
between
marketplace
yesterday and today.
that's not just
I'm quite
connecting
amazed
farmers,
and I'm
but
really
empowering
impressed
them.
at what you are doing. Please keep it up because I
At the
can
core
be
of
sure
Lesha's
that in the
mission
next 2
is
to 3
access to
years, you
finance
guys will be
as part
real
of
high
offering
flyers
one-stop
within
digital
the
solutions.
And I
We
try
understand
to
that
look
for
at your business.
smallholder farmers,
I've dissected it,
financial
look at
inclusion
myself,
can be a game
where
changer.
where you are now.
With
I was
Lesha,
there
farmers
many
gain
years ago,
access
maybe
to
about 7 years
agricultural
ago,
services
5-7
such
years
as
ago,
inputs,
and I can
mechanization,
immediately give
and
you
agroclimate advisory,
solutions to what
where the
you
Lesha
can
agents
do.
facilitate access to
First of
finance
all,
through personalized
for
credit
Zima,
scoring.
you deal with
We use
pumpkin and
transactional
sesame.
and digital
These are
data to
health
create
products.
unique
And
credit
we know that
profiles
right
for each
now the
farmers
world is
and
tending
connect them
towards
to
healthy-
financial institutions.
feeding.
So you are in the right
This
direction.
revolutionary system allows us to offer input loans tailored to specific needs and capacities of individual farmers, gearing towards productivity and improved income.
In your first statement, you wanted role models, you wanted your business to be there.
That's not all.
Be visible.
We go a step further by bundling financial services with insurance offerings.
So go
This
on
provides
our line,
farmers with
talk
added
about your
security,
product.
especially in the
talk
face
about the
of
health benefits of your
unpredictable
product.
factors
Be
like
there.
weather
Let people
events.
see you. One
Lersha
person will
isn't
connect,
about
two person will connect,
transactions,
you'll be
it's about
surprised
transformation.
that people
We're
will,
empowering
because
smallholder
they are seeing you
farmers to
online, will
invest
want
confidently,
to buy. So it's
protect
important
their
that you
agricultural
continue to be
endeavors,
visible.
and
If you
build
can't do it,
brighter
get
futures by
professionals who can
providing
put you out
dynamic
there
agroclimate
and
advisory
give you a
and
good
fertilizer
face link.
recommendations.
Some 7 years
And
ago,
our
I didn't
commitment
really
does
bother
not stop
about,
there. Lersha has a
visibility.
dedicated
But
call
today,
center
I know the
with
importance
friendly
of
agents
visibility,
across different
especially when you're
localities
dealing with a
ready to
product
assist farmers
that is
every step of the
slightly
way.
not
But
very
we're not
common,
doing
like
this
pumpkin.
alone. We're
So
proud
you
to
need to
work
do a
with
lot of
dedicated
a lot of
team,
knowledge
supportive
transfer for
partners,
people
and
to
most
be aware.
importantly, the
So
farmers
that's
themselves.
what we need to take.
Together, we're
So
sowing
when
the
we are
seeds
talking
of
about,
financial inclusion, one transaction at a
investment
time.
for you,
Join
I'll
us
say
on
you
this
look-
journey.
you should look at
Visit our
angel
website to
investors.
learn
There are
more
so
about how
many
Lersha is
angel
unlocking
investors
access to
who
finance
want to
and
put their
transforming
money
agriculture
in
for smallholder farmers.
food that has to do with health, specifically. I mean, they are there. And being visible will make you to easily find them. So apart from that, if you look at your country, I'm sure there will be those kind of funding for agric. So, but because your farmers are small, they can't access this money by themselves. And that goes to you to some questions I will answer, and then the two of you will pick. What you need to do is, first of all, know your farmers properly. Profile your farmers properly. Keep good data of how your farmers are growing from 1 acre to 2 acres to 3 acres, or whatever it is plot you are dealing with right now, from 1 plot to 2 plots. Have what I will call a ledger for each of the farmers in your business. So at any time you can approach the bank and say, hey, I have 100 farmers. I have trained them. They started with 1 acre. Today they are with 5 acres. I have used my money to bring them to this point. I want you to fund them. I will guarantee them. Do you know why you can guarantee them? Because you know them. You know them at the back of your palm. You know that you have used your money to try these farmers, and they have paid back in the first year, second year, third year. Your confidence is so high that you can tell the bank, give them money, I'll guarantee. And when you say that to any bank, most of the time they want to fund it. Because the confidence, for we women, I think what they fund in us is our confidence, because they know we will pay back. They know we will pay back. We have integrity. So when you come up and say, I know these 50 farmers, they are doing 1 acre now. If you fund them to do 5 acres, I will move my business from here, this revenue to this revenue. I tell you, you will get banks who will give you the money. The first bank may say, oh no, I don't know pumpkin. What is pumpkin? They could try to discourage you. Don't worry. Go to the next person. Somebody is going to look at it and say, pumpkin, tell me about it. Give them a little to eat. Maybe make some snacks. Let them eat it. You'll be surprised that from there, they'll say, okay, this looks nice. And you say it's lower cholesterol. Oh, yes. Oh, and my sister have cholesterol. They start to connect. And from there, you will see that 1 or 2 banks will be willing to invest. For you in Nigeria, it's even easy. Nigeria have some established platforms. What you need to do for tomatoes is, during the off-season, don't start looking for money when the season is on. Oh, no. In the off-season, when you are not ready to collect the money now is when you start, knowing very well that they will take you 3 and 4 months. So by the time you are done, it will be just about the time the season is starting. And then you continue to tell them, I must get this money by June. I must get this money by June. That's why I'm starting in January. So they understand the importance. Okay, and there are funding in Nigeria. There is the Anchor Borrower Scheme. Don't go for the general anchor. You won't get it. Because, I mean, that funding is like almost on the dead row. But ask them for prime anchor. Prime anchor means, I know these 50 farmers, I'm ready to guarantee them. They will give you. Once you are ready to guarantee, the bank does not care. And then you would have made sure that there are farmers you have tested, worked with, and you can hit your chest with. That's one. There's also the CAT loan. I don't know if you have similar loans in your country. The CAT loan is like like loan for industrialists. Okay, so that loan also is single. These are single-digit loans that will help you. somehow they are difficult to get, but with persistence, good business model, you will get it. I will tell you, don't give professionals your business plan to write. I have never done it. I write my business plan myself. Because you can give yourself to your writings. You can transfer your vision into your writing. When you give the professional, they just write it in a too much of English. And but when you write it yourself, you can give them to do the dotting, cross the I's and dot the T's. But you see, that transfer of your own vision, emotion into your writing, whoever is reading it can immediately feel you and want to invest in such a business. So I will, I don't know if I've taken so much of time. I will also quickly say that there are investors that want SMEs. Yesterday, I was coming and I met a lady. I don't know if she's in this hall. I met a lady and we started talking and she asked me about my business and I told her and she said, oh, that they invest in 1 million and below. So there are investors who even are in this conference who are looking for beautiful projects like yours that want businesses that want to invest in your business for 1 million and below or 2 million thereabouts. So there are different categories of investors and you can always pitch any of them. You could do a blend, investment and that's equity and loans. Yep. That way you are able to also play around with.
But sometimes.
Thank you. So I can see, you see how it's really even getting hot. By the way, Bruce is my business partner. Next time we are in the advisory business as JBQ Africa, we will basically be talking to them in Yoruba, Igbo, no English. No English, please. We can move now to the, if you allow me, let's allow Ogola to ask her question, and if we have still time, I like this. Over to you, Ogola.
Okay, so my question for MEC is about building sustainable business models that are going to be critical and crucial for long-term success. So what advice can you give, like a woman SME like myself that is trying to develop sustainable and financial models that can balance both growth, profitability, and impact? So we want to make impact, we still want to grow, and we still want to be profitable. So what advice can you give us that will develop those kind of financial models in the agricultural sector? That's my question.
Should I just take, okay. I'm sure maybe part of it will also be for you. First of all, you are not too small to have a board. Go and subject yourself to a board. Look for like-minded people that have similar values with you, that can tell you, sit down, and you know you will sit down. That can tell you, don't do that, even though it's your business, and you will obey. That's number one key success factor for you as an SME. Number two, it's record keeping. Don't cut corners. I mean, you don't need to invest in 360 degrees. Simple Excel, but let it be, keep every tiny record, because when an investor wants to come, they want to check that you have not been just putting your hand in your business and just spending as you like. A new Jeep is out and then you buy and da. So they want to check that you are treating this business like a business. And if they put their money in, they will be able to take their money back. Even if you have issues, they will know that, no, this is just a sincere issue, not because she bought a piece of gold last month, which is not supposed to be in the budget. So try and have Excel, simple pitch tree, simple accounting package, follow it. Have process. You don't even need to get expensive process. Write down your SOP. We call it SOP. Write down your SOP and get your people to follow it. As small as you are, that is the way to go. When you start with that, it's easy to just climb up to more complex programs. And whoever is coming to your business will see it, we see the transparency, we see the honesty in your business, and they will want to invest. Basically, most times it's not really even turnover issue. You could have all the turnover and the investor will still not invest if they don't see that integrity in your business. So if you have a board, the board will be able to check you in some things. And then you have process, it will help you, it will even guide your own day-to-day activity Whether you are there, you are not there, your business will continue to run. Assuming something happens, you don't go back to Nigeria or you don't go back to Rwanda. And what happens? If you have process, your business will continue to run. If you have a board, they will immediately take over. I help you to make sure that your business succeeds you. But if you don't have process and you don't have a board, that will just be the end of that dream. So no matter how small, you can start even now.
Thank you very much. Those are very good insights. Please, round of applause. I guess with you, Yemisi, my business is out of business. All the advice have been given here for free. So yeah, thank you very much. So back to you. Question: are you sure that you'll be able to answer by yes or no your next question? That's a good challenge. No. Okay, no worries. We'll come back to that. I will actually pin her on the side after the session to make sure she answers your question.
Thank you.
Allow me to get into the round of questions. And to you, Yemisi. But Ruth, you can help out here if you have some insights. So from my experience, basically JBQ Africa, the company Akoran, it's an agribusiness advisor and project implementation firm. We are having the pleasure to work with you on a specific project, which I will not mention here. From my experience dealing with financial institutions, because we also advise specific financial institutions on how to finance and invest in the agri-ecosystem on the continent. Our experience is that banks are very comfortable lending to governments, right? No headache, big loans, humongous loans, guaranteed returns unless the country fails. We have few examples. I will not put them on the line here. So what would be the incentive to finance agri-SMEs? They're more complicated as they have small structures. They're not properly structured themselves. And it's even more complex because we're dealing with ag. With I don't know how many fundamentals, probably between 7 and 8, you have to take care of the policy impacting your food. You need to take care of anything related to import-export bans. You need to take care of anything related to the weather. You need to take care of anything related to the rain. You need to take care of anything related to the route to market, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So with all of that, I'm not even sure that bankers do understand, as you said, any business, whether it's sesame or whatsoever. So that's basically what we have been noticing. My question will be, if we have financial institutions, debt funds, which are completely focused on ag financing and they have nothing else to do outside of that, do you think that could be a solution? Over to you.
I believe that the way to go really, or one of the ways to go, is to invest, is for these big pockets, let me call them, to invest in private businesses. And the incentive is that if the impact is great, if it's huge, the number of lives that are blessed, if an SME can provide, or a business can provide the backward integration of impact, number of people blessed, number of children being able to go to school, number of development that have come to the community in terms of power, in terms of rural and water, in terms of reduction of rural-urban migration. I think these are incentives that should encourage transfer of funds, or let me say investments in private company, whether SME, large company, or whichever one, once it is private. So I believe it is the way to go, because here you are dealing with different companies at different micro level. And if each of them are really making great impact, then you might be surprised that such an investment will give more impact than if given to the government. I'm not saying giving government money is not good. It is good. But I am saying maybe it's time to start looking at providing these monies for SMEs, MSMEs, private companies that are creating great impact. I will use her business as an example. How many farmers do you deal with?
Over 900 farmers.
900 farmers, each farmer have wife and maybe minimum of 5 children. And I'm saying minimum because back home in Nigeria, most of the farmers have 2, 3 wives. And each of them have dependents. So if you have one farmer, you have about 30 people living with that particular farmer. Multiply by 900. And then all the indirect families along the value chain that are also blessed. That's a very small company. Multiply by thousands that can benefit from just one chunk that you give to a state or a country. And how many thousands of SMEs can benefit from that, and you can actually track back lives that are actually being changed from this.
Thank you very much. So impact should be the driver.
Impact should be the driver.
Over to you, Ruth. Your 2 thoughts within a minute or 2 maximum. Over to you.
Well, I think it all really depends on the risk appetite. Of course, for financial institutions, the risk appetite on SMEs is, somehow low, but there are mechanisms that can actually they can actually increase the risk appetite. And I think one of them, I believe the best thing or the best innovation that we can do in SMEs, particularly in agriculture, is to come up with a digital marketplace, agri-marketplace. The digital marketplace is where, all stakeholders in the agri value chain meet digitally. But in there you find everything, all the information that is needed, whether it's the prices, whether it's the demand, the off-takers, everyone. And actually, the farmers or the SMEs can actually input in all the information about the sales that they make, et cetera, and which means the banks can actually use the same information in terms of risk scoring of the particular. And it all reduces the risk because at the end of the day, you have a farmer, but you have an off-taker, the sales that are made, so that transparency in terms of reporting. But so I think an innovation on a marketplace, agri-marketplace, would actually make a significant difference here.
Thank you very much. So to summarize it, first in terms of the different advice, actually there are many. Amazing. So first of all, when it comes to the issue related to how can we make sure that access to finance is better, different ideas. First of all is about visibility, right? Be visible, be out there. Make sure you market yourself, that people get to know you, what you do. Sometimes come with some sesame and give them so that they can test your product so that you can test their money later on. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, I guess, is to understand the investment landscape, right, and the financing landscape. We have banks, we have debt funds, we have private equity firms, we have angel investors, and so on and so forth, impact investors, and really understand the ecosystem of those potential financiers and investors to really understand what do you have to offer and what is the right dollar to my pockets, right? The right dollar to your project. So that's a very interesting thing. And there's a very interesting point here. Financiers are fairly structured, so they like to see data, right? The record keeping, Missy was talking about. Make sure that you have tracked everything you do in your business in a very simple way, as she said. In an Excel spreadsheet, tracking on a monthly basis what is in, what is out, and so on and so forth, because that's how you create trust. And once you have trust, you can have money. The other thing which was mentioned is when you have the record keeping, go there with confidence, right? How confident are you? I say, I can guarantee my own farmers. What are you going to say? Mrs. or Mr. Bank, right? And because they don't understand the business of smallholder farmer, because you've been tracking it, you understand it better, they will understand your business better than they understand the smallholder farmers. So they will be willing to finance them through you. It's very interesting. The other thing which has been mentioned is having structures in your business, in your businesses. There's nothing too small to have a board, right? And by the way, we can be a testament to that. Board is free advice from experts we cannot pay, right? And how can you sell that? You sell basically the impact Yemisi was talking about, right? There are people in the room who can be your board advisors, and the rest, you cannot pay the bills, right? They're too expensive. But at the end of the day, God has put something amazing in any human being, is to give back. What you sell is, by being part of this venture, you'll be giving back to the society. And each and every time you go to sleep, you'll feel amazing because there's something you're doing in Nigeria, in Rwanda, in Ethiopia, in Zimbabwe, right? So that's what you can sell to them, right? Sell the impact and you'll get the advice. Then there's a very interesting topic in terms of banks and SME financing and why they're shying away. Yes, one of the elements is that they don't have enough data to make decisions or informed decisions in terms of the risk appetite. And that needs to be built. We mentioned that. And digitalization now can help, right, to track all those elements and provide more insight to bankers to feel more comfortable and feel that the risk appetite is there and the risk profile is not as high as they thought. And I like the idea of impact, because what I was suggesting is probably a short-term decision, right? Let's have that fund, making sure that there's a full focus on ag. But where are we going as nations, as regions, as a continent, if we are not thinking about tomorrow, if we are not supporting our population? What will happen? Uprise. If there's no food on the table, if there's no money in the pockets, what people are left with is revolt, is revolution. Do we really want to see that? Probably not. Then all of us have a role, especially the key stakeholders, in making sure that the economy is growing. And that's where we need financial institutions to be paying more attention to that. So fantastic. Now we get into part 2. And part 2 is all about 2 other SMEs. We'll see the video of Tarima Vegetables first, and the next one after. Over to you guys.
Sihlahla Trees and Silla Vegetables are based in Zimbabwe. Silla Vegetables produces grey oyster mushrooms. Sihlahla Trees produces tree seedlings. Both companies' visions align with UN SDGs 1, 2, 11, 12, and 13. Our customers or growers are mainly women and youth with a passion for agriculture. We use post-harvest agricultural waste as raw materials in both entities. We sell ready-to-fruit mushroom grow bags to our growers. Training is a prerequisite for purchase. The training includes mushroom production management, financial management, and environmental management. Growers use post-harvest mushroom grow bags mixed with soil as planting media for tree seedlings. Our main challenge is financing and applies to our entities and growers as follows. 1. Business has grown organically and is self-financed. This inhibits the rate of scaling up. 2. Infrastructure and working capital financing or loans are inaccessible due to prohibitive banking requirements. Access or knowledge of other financing options such as grants or angel investors is limited or not available. 3. Rudimentary infrastructure is used because of the prohibitive costs of grow houses. 4. Continuous improvement, research, value addition, and innovation are limited due to lack of financing. 5. Unskilled labor is employed and training is sidelined because skilled labor is costly. 6. Use of our bespoke accounting system, Costway T20 ERP, is difficult due to lack of capital to purchase IT equipment and off-grid power systems. ERP systems are crucial to measure business performance. Despite these challenges, we are confident that if we collaborate with other growers in Africa and utilize guidance from agreements such as SADC, COMESA, and AFCFTA, we can overcome these hurdles. Our vision is for edible fungus production to mushroom exponentially and for millions of trees to be planted in African cities, creating urban forests.
Thank you very much. We will give the technical team a few seconds now to put the video of Lasha. Over to you guys.
In the heart of agriculture, where livelihoods bloom, one digital platform is transforming the landscape for smallholder farmers in Ethiopia. Meet Lersha, the agricultural marketplace that's not just connecting farmers, but empowering them. At the core of Lersha's mission is access to finance as part of offering one-stop digital solutions. We understand that for smallholder farmers, financial inclusion can be a game changer. With Lersha, farmers gain access to agricultural services such as inputs, mechanization, and agroclimate advisory, where the Lersha agents facilitate access to finance through personalized credit scoring. We use transactional and digital data to create unique credit profiles for each farmers and connect them to financial institutions. This revolutionary system allows us to offer input loans tailored to specific needs and capacities of individual farmers, gearing towards productivity and improved income. And that's not all. We go a step further by bundling financial services with insurance offerings. This provides farmers with added security, especially in the face of unpredictable factors like weather events. Lersha isn't about transactions, it's about transformation. We're empowering smallholder farmers to invest confidently, protect their agricultural endeavors, and build brighter futures by providing dynamic agroclimate advisory and fertilizer recommendations. And our commitment does not stop there. Lersha has a dedicated call center with friendly agents across different localities ready to assist farmers every step of the way. But we're not doing this alone. We're proud to work with a dedicated team, supportive partners, and most importantly, the farmers themselves. Together, we're sowing the seeds of financial inclusion one transaction at a time. Join us on this journey. Visit our website to learn more about how Lersha is unlocking access to finance and transforming agriculture for smallholder farmers.
Fantastic. A round of applause for those two entrepreneurs. So that's amazing, actually simplifying my work here. Sila, basically you just need financing from Ruth to make sure that you have the right record keeping through ERP systems, the ones actually MEC was suggesting. That's amazing. The solution is already there. And you, Ruth, by the way, you were looking for data. Lersha is there for you. So that's fantastic. So I'll start with Sila to summarize in 1 minute or two what are the biggest challenges her business is going through. Over to you.
Thank you. Our business is going through a lot of financial challenges, and I stated them in the video. So we do deal with a lot of rural and urban women and youth, and what we found is that there's an expectation for farmers to be financiers, they need to be accountants, HR, specialists, packaging, and everything. They need to be everything, and they can't be. They need to focus on one thing. And so that's why we then realized we need to come up with a cost way where we actually give them a package which they can use to work on their finances. So it's almost like a chicken and egg situation where the financial institutions like Roots ones, they're saying you need to do record keeping. So our customers or growers, they don't have training in that. They're not special, they're not, they're good mushroom growers, they're good at planting trees, it's simple for them. But they need training, and they need consistent training. Unfortunately, from south of Africa, where I'm coming from, the banks will not give you funding for training. You get that from international funders. If you go to the bank and you say, this is what I want to do, I want to train people like we want to do. We want to train them to grow mushrooms, to look after the environment, and to look after their finances. The banks won't give you money for that. So we are in a catch-22 situation. So we need some sort of change, some sort of transformation from financial institutions where they relook the way they do business with us. So you find like we've got AFCFTA, where the barriers to trade have been broken, where we're no longer looking at Africa as different countries, but as one big country. And I was wondering if the financial institutions can do that as well, because East and West Africa, I've noticed, are more receptive. Sorry, I put a timer for my 2 minutes. East and West Africa are more receptive to ideas such as training, etc. Southern Africa is not receptive to that sort of financing. So I was wondering if the barriers to trade, which have been put have been lifted, can also be lifted for financing, where I get financing from Tanzania. I don't need to be in Tanzania. I'm from Zimbabwe. But what NMB Tanzania is offering is perfect for me. But I'm on the wrong side of the continent. So I hope something can be done about that. I've got a long list of other things, but I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. Those will be takeaways for our two amazing CEOs, that long list. Keep it warm. So over to you, Abraham, over to you. What are the challenges Leisure is going through?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abraham, and Leisure, as you have seen in the video, we promote one-stop digital solution to smallholder farmers. Mr. Moderator earlier spoke about the challenge of providing access to finance to SME. From our experience, the most resilient SMEs are smallholder farmers. We see them as private sector, we see them as SME, and our platform try to provide a one-stop digital solution by bundling agro-climate advisory and access to finance with input and mechanization. The reason why we try to provide multiple solutions at a time is because of the profile of the smallholder farmers. In Ethiopia, we have a smallholder farmer with less than 1 hectare of land, and if you try to provide one service at a time, because of their tiny landholding, the service might not be feasible to private sector. But one of the big challenges was low adoption rate, because we run a digital platform, and in 4 years of our attempt, the adoption rate is less than 10%. Out of 100 farmers we approach, it is less than 10%, and you can't build a sustainable business model with that, less than 10%. So access to finance actually is a blessing, which improves the adoption rate of the farmer. But the challenge comes here: interoperability between the agricultural service and the financial service. And we have heard earlier, risk management is actually the first line you hear from financial institutions. So how do you build that interoperability between financial service and the agricultural services? Because agricultural companies, they worry about seasons, they worry about the products for smallholder farmers, but financial institutions, they worry a lot about risk and also repayment. So currently we are operating with International Finance Corporation in Ethiopia, an attempt to provide this match between financial institution and agricultural services. So Lersha, as a company, is currently in between of this challenge, trying to create the balance between interoperability.
Thank you very much. I like that tech word, interoperability. Summarizing basically how those two worlds can basically be working together and have some synergies and leverage on each other's knowledge, right? If I need to summarize that. It's fantastic. So let's get into questions to our CEO, Ruth. And the first question will come from Sila. Over to you.
Ruth, you spoke of the digital marketplace, so I wanted to find out, establishing strategic partnerships is very important for SMEs growth and access to resources. So how can financial institutions like yours support SMEs in building successful partnerships with key stakeholders in the agricultural sector?
Thank you very much for that question. I think you rightly say that partnerships will be critical. I think in this journey, really walking alone is not feasible. So, but before I jump in highlighting on the value of partnerships and the NMB's approach, as you asked, in terms of how we are supporting SMEs to create strategic partnerships, I think let me highlight some important points. And I know, we will be hearing a lot about these statistics, but I think it is important to set the context. I think SME growth is important because of the role that they play for the socio-economic development, particularly in Africa. And various research actually show that SMEs in Africa represent about 90% of total businesses across sectors. In sub-Saharan Africa, SMEs create close to 70% of formal employment. You know, these are really big numbers. In Tanzania, for example, SME contribute over 27% of the country's overall GDP. And in terms of, you know, the medium-term plan for the country, actually SME are an important contributor into the country's long-term development. But as you have heard, you know, from all the videos, but also in a number of other sessions that we have had, Africa SMEs face a huge financing gap. Yeah, the moderator talked about almost $130 billion financing gap according to IFC. You rightly talked about establishing partnerships, and I think it is really important that we create partnerships that will unlock the growth potential of these SMEs. I said earlier that particularly at NMB, we have realized that in order to unlock the potential growth of these SMEs, particularly those that are in agriculture, we can actually not work alone. We need to work in partnerships, and mainly because of the challenges that these SMEs face. I will mention some of these challenges, and you also talked about some of them. Majority of these SMEs, they don't have the technical knowledge of banking services. But also, most of them are in rural areas where most banks are not there. You know, most of the banks in Africa are actually concentrated in urban areas. The truth is, and I said this earlier, you know, we will continue to say this, dealing with SMEs, particularly those in agriculture, is considered a risky business. This is not me. This is research, you know, saying about that. We have research by Aseli, for example. They highlight that lenders find lending to SME unprofitable compared to other sectors, but also the risk is twice as high, and the returns are lower by almost 4 to 5%. Now,
sorry, Ruth, just to come back to the point you raised in terms of strategic partnerships. What, for instance, you mentioned the issue related to technical knowledge. Which kind of partnership NMB has to bridge that technical knowledge for SMEs?
Excellent. Now, technical knowledge, this is capacity building, but also it's really about financial inclusion, capacity building to these smallholder farmers or SMEs. So NMB Bank, for example, over the years we have collaborated with Rabobank. That collaboration has enabled NMB Bank through NMB Foundation to actually train farmer-based organization on financial literacy, training them on governance issues, and most of them eventually they graduated and they were able to obtain loans from the bank. So over the 10 years of our partnership with Rabo Foundation, we have actually trained close to 200,000 smallholder farmers, and most of them graduated and started, you know, borrowing from the bank. But also, talking about the risk, the perceived risk with SMEs.
Sorry, if you allow me, I just want to applaud you, 200,000 who ended up.
Yeah, so that is for 10 years, eh? Yeah, 10 years, 200,000
10 years of work.
SMEs, yes, trained, and I think they graduated. But also we have been talking about the perceived risk of lending to SMEs. And so in that particular area, we are actually leveraging on guarantee schemes. Yeah, the guarantee schemes, for example, African Guarantee Fund, PASS, ASEL, these actually help banks to reduce the risks. Yeah, so most of the time they guarantee 50%, 80% of the portfolio, and that actually helps to reduce the risk from banks, and therefore we are able to lend even to SMEs that are perceived as risky, but now because we have the guarantee, it really helps that. We have other partnerships from NMB Bank. So for example, the other challenge that SME in agriculture face include access to resources. In that, we have actually partnered with quite a number of strategic partners, particularly those that provide farm equipment. So the likes of John Deere, the likes of Agricom, and we are able to partner and to finance farm equipment, particularly to SMEs. But I think one of the recent partnerships that we have had is actually with Vodacom Tanzania. We have partnered with Vodacom to finance device financing, and this is actually to support provision of affordable smartphones. We are talking about digital, but these people without smartphones, it's really difficult to digitize them. So we have partnered with Vodacom. We'll be financing, and we have actually agreed with Vodacom that in just 1 year we are able to sell almost 1 million smartphones to the market.
Wow.
And I think that will be brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to stop you.
And this is mainly because, the FinScope survey in Tanzania, it shows that while 75% of Tanzanians own phones, only 19% actually own smartphones. So this is really needed, and I think it's a brilliant partnership.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So I like that idea because it's responding to one of the challenges you mentioned in terms of the remote farmers. So if they are having smartphones, then they are no longer as remote as they were before. So Thank you very much for those answers. Very impressive. So partnerships are amazing, and happy to see that the guarantee scheme from AGF is working well. I used to work for them when they started the venture, and actually I worked on NMB. So I'm glad to hear that things have been heading into the right direction. And actually there's some founders of AGF in the room, African Development Bank, somewhere seated there. So we go into the next question. Abraham, over to you.
Thank you. I'll bring you back to the risk management part, because in an attempt working with telecoms and commercial banks in Ethiopia and elsewhere, they always talk about risk management.
Yeah.
We understand working with SMEs and smallholder farmers, you require more guarantee and models, but also, as NMB, what's your advice on how these, loans can be effectively managed, as well as in the agriculture value chain financing also, how this can be managed in a healthy way, the financial performance?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is another brilliant, very practical question. I think the topic of financial risk management, particularly for SME, is a very important topic because, and this is exactly what we have been talking, I believe that the ability of SME to grow will basically depend on how much is their ability to effectively manage financial risks. Yeah, we talk about risk. If you are not able to manage those financial risks, certainly the growth is very limited. And maybe just to highlight, inherently, based on the nature of SMEs, particularly those in agriculture, they face a number of financial risks, and these are caused by different factors. These factors include, for example, production risk in terms of quantity, quality of commodities that they produce, but there's price risk, prices are changing every now and then. Governance, very important, and particularly fund management challenges. I think within the banking sector, we really struggle very much with SMEs, particularly on fund diversion. Yeah, they usually divert the funds. Now, in terms of addressing your question, in terms of how can an SME like yourself approach and effectively manage risk, I think there are really a number of tools, and my colleague there really talked about a number of them. But maybe I will either repeat, but I will talk about additional approach that we actually need to consider if we are really to manage our financial risks. I think the first one that I will talk about is formalize your business. Yeah, if you really want to grow, you want to deal with banks. Banks are formal. Banks are, fully regulated. You need to be formal. Make sure business is formal. Your business has been formalized. It's properly registered, and it actually complies with the required regulations. I think this is my another second recommendation or advice here. Comply with regulations, particularly the tax laws. Yeah, I think tax is a big challenge. Someone also talked about that, because any risk of non-compliance or non-payment of tax, you are actually risking your license. Yeah, when those tax returns come, you can actually collapse. I think my colleague talks a lot about record keeping. This cannot be over-emphasized. You actually need to know where your money is. If you don't know where your money is, you are risking your business. You need to know whether you are moving into the right direction or whether you are making sound decisions based on information that you have on numbers. The other thing that I will just add up is ensure you have access to current information, current trends. For example, information about prices, commodity prices, about your product demands, etc., etc. Embrace technology. I think I talked about the marketplace. Know where the world is, and know exactly whether your products are needed. But what will change? What will come in the near future? I think it is very good to help you in projections. The other point that I will highlight is always obtain smart loans at fair value. Please avoid loan sharks. Yeah, I think a number of SMEs are struggling with loan sharks. Those people will charge interest rates that are unpractical, and you will never be able, to repay the loans. You will default, and you will get into trouble. So always borrow from banks or use formal financial institutions to obtain your funding needs. And be focused. I talked about fund diversion. It's a big challenge. People come and borrow for a specific purpose, but they divert funds. You are borrowing for a working capital facility. You go and build a house. It's a big challenge. You kill your business. So be focused and make sure that when you borrow funds, the funds are actually channeled to the reasons where you have the reasons you borrowed. But I think last but not least, have an insurance. And particularly if you are dealing with agriculture, there are so many risks, drought, diseases, etc., etc. There are a number of insurance products nowadays. For example, I don't know, weather index insurance, yield area insurance products, and these I think can help you particularly on risks that are unseen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To summarize this, it's very interesting when you started with partnership. What kind of partnerships we'll be looking for is any partnership which can help a business to grow. And in the case of NNB Bank, what has been very interesting is first, to understand SMEs, can you give us a guarantee to operate and to be able to navigate that? So that was one. Two, how do we deal with remote farmers? By providing them probably a tool to bring them to accessibility, which is the smartphone. Three is we have an issue when it comes to the knowledge, right? Knowledge sharing. Can we leverage on a bigger bank which has hundreds of years of experience in agri-financing like Rabobank, and dealing with basically the foundation to help us impact our people with the right knowledge to do the business in ag. When it comes to risk management, I guess everything has been said, from Yemisi to Ruth, when it comes to formalize your business, and I guess the record keeping is part of formalizing the business from a legal perspective, but also from an operational perspective, the SOPs, right? The standard operations procedures you were talking about, Yemisi. the taxman. But on that side, I think we'll need some support. As SMEs, we are suffering because the doing business environment, I hope there are people from the government in the room, is not very conducive for SMEs or startups, right? First year of operation, even if you have a small profit, it will be taxed by the taxman. Does it really incentivize the SMEs getting into formalized businesses? That's a question mark. Probably the governments should be thinking about how do we entice those informal businesses getting into more formalized businesses by giving them time, right? Come, do your nil returns for 3 years, and then we start now taxing you at 10%, then the year after 20%, 30%, up to the cap of the tax levels you might be falling into. So allowing that doing business environment will probably trigger more informal businesses thinking twice in terms of going formal, because now once you're formal, you can get access to financing. Then Ruth mentioned keep up with the trends. So basically, the business environment, is your sector growing, what are the challenges and the rest? And last but not least, make sure you go for formal financing, otherwise sharks are behind you. So thank you very much for that. So we get into the interactive questions side. My question to you, Ruth, based on your fantastic bank, NMB, what kind of successful business cases have you set up to support notably women-owned enterprises? So there are many represented here. I guess we are at 75% representation in the panel, actually more. I would say 80% representation of the panel. And based on those business cases in terms of support, how have you been scaling those kind of initiatives? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I think what I can say at NMB, we have a very strong commitment towards empowerment of women. And we started this, long ago. We do understand that the empowerment of women is critical towards achieving a sustainable and inclusive socio-economic growth in societies. But before I talk about our very successful gender bond, which I will talk just shortly, I think even before we came with the idea of coming up with a gender bond, NMB was already, supporting women through a number of initiatives. We have an initiative that we started since 2018. We call it Jasiri Initiative. This was specifically for women, and Jasiri means, brave or strong. So the NMB Jasiri Initiative, as I said, started since 2018, and it was mainly to encourage women, to educate them in terms of accessing formal banking services. And it combines the special capacity building program, but also tailor-made financing solutions specifically for women. Now, if I can talk about the Jasiri bond, which I think it has been very successful, and a number of platforms have talked about Jasiri bond. Jasiri bond was actually a use of proceed gender bond, and it was looking to close the financing gap that is existing. We all know that the financing gap, particularly in Africa, is, I think, to women is close to 46 billion. So the particular bond was looking to close that or to reduce the gap by providing access to finance to women-led businesses or businesses that are owned by women. This bond was looking for 25 billion Tanzania shilling, but we actually raised the 74 billion Tanzania shilling, and this was equivalent to $32 million. In short, the bond was highly oversubscribed, and I think this is when you talk about the impact financing. I think people are now looking not only for profits or gains from the investments, but they are now looking at the impact that the investments are bringing. So we came up with a gender bond that was specifically empowering women, and the people actually, really wanted to invest on that to impact it, not only to gain profits, but also to impact it. So this bond is actually a landmark issuance in sub-Saharan Africa. It was the first bond to be issued and listed in the stock market. So it actually made NMB the pioneer of sustainable instruments aimed at economic empowerment of women in the region. I think the other thing that I can say is that the bond was also mentioned by the Global SME Forum as the platinum winner of the Sustainable Bond of the Year category in the 2022 Global SME Forum in Cambodia. This bond has actually also been cross-listed in the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. I think the first bond from Africa to be cross-listed in Europe. And as we speak, 100% of the proceeds have actually been allocated already to more than 1,000 women-led enterprises in Tanzania, whereby more than 3,000 new loans were issued to both SMEs but also MSMEs. So in short, I think this is the proposition that we have. So first, that intentional investment that we have to women, but also now the special bond that we issued specifically to support women-led businesses or women-owned businesses. And it was a huge success.
Thank you very much. Amazing team. My final question today, I guess we talked about it through different ways in terms of what kind of additional players in investment and financing do we need. All the risk appetite cannot be taken by our commercial banks because they are not structured to take all of that, right, when it comes to new ventures and the rest. So my questions to you and also to EMSC. This is the idea. As I said, commercial banks are not supposed to take venture capital because it's too risky, right? The banks, in terms of interest rate, they are capped. That's why they cannot get into ventures or financing a startup, where probably 1 out of 20 do collapse. So usually, angel investors will be looking for returns which are probably 300 times, 500 times what they put money into the business because of high level of risk. Those are the risks the commercial bank cannot take. But we all know that there's a lack. I think it's Sila who mentioned it in the video. There's a lack of capital ventures, right? Angel investors on the continent, that for sure. So based on that, vis-a-vis the rest of the world, do we think that we should put some structures in place where everybody's putting money on the table, from governments thinking around how can we catalyze venture capital investment and using taxpayers' money to catalyze the growth of their economies, to add to our pension funds on the continent, sleeping on hundreds of billions of dollars. And that money usually goes into infrastructure and real estate. That's it, right? Should we put a small allocations of those hundreds of billions of dollars in how can we stimulate the ecosystem of startups into our continent? Then large corporates like Saltree, right? You're in cassava and say we are doing starch. Is it interesting to finance or invest into a startup which will do a starch derivative, which can get, let's say, into the brewery industry or starch for clothes, right? When you have nice African attire, which looks very straight, it's because there is starch on it. Starch for candies, right? Should we think about a model where large successful corporates will be creating their venture capital for the next growth and investing in those startups? And then after all of that, now the donors say, okay, now Africa is taking this topic quite seriously and we are willing to match and put additional money. Is it a good idea? And if it is a good idea, how will it work in your perspective, Ruth? Over to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you first said banks are not supposed to take venture capital risks or investing in startups. Well, I think probably not always true. I think commercial banks, sometimes, they can take such risks, yeah. I think it really depends on the financial institution's risk appetite, as I said, but also the assessment of risk of that particular investment in a startup. I think we have cases where we have actually financed startups, yeah.
Sorry, I have a quick clarification to provide. I come with an idea of a fantastic tech platform which will be a marketplace to trade in between Zimbabwe and Tanzania. We're yet to have one currency. So I just come with an idea. I've registered my company. I have 0 activities under my belt, but I have done interesting things in market linkages and the rest. But my company is on the paper. Will the bank finance that?
We probably not, but...
Thank you.
But I think I can give examples where we have financed startups, yeah? While in this particular forum, in the course of this week, you will hear a lot about the Building a Better Tomorrow initiative by the government of Tanzania. Yeah, this initiative is new. Yeah, the government is trying to bring youth into agriculture. Yeah, of course they are providing, land. They are investing in terms of infrastructure, and providing, for example, extension services and all that. And this is purely startups. And here we go, but because we know that, the government will be providing infrastructure, so the farms will be mechanized, but extension services will be provided, but we also have an off-taker. So the National Food Reserve will actually buy the respective crops. This transaction is closed end-to-end. It's a startup, but as we speak, NMB Bank has actually already set aside 20 billion Tanzania shilling to support that initiative. So I think it really depends on how the particular idea is structured in terms of is it real and does it make sense? Yeah. You talked about angel capital and venture capitalists and the fact that probably these are very limited in Africa. Yes, but also I can say that Africa, I think, continues to be open to attract investors, and they can actually come from all over and invest. We are liberalized, and investors can come from all over the world to come and still invest in Africa. Does it make sense to use African government funds, pension funds, and donor funds to create local venture capital funds? I think yes, yeah, because I think that will add to an available funds to actually support these startups. So I think it's an idea that, is workable and it can actually support startups. And I think some governments already are forming the so-called sovereign wealth funds. Yeah, we have some countries that are already setting aside funds for sovereign wealth funds, and I understand in Africa, I think we have close to 100 billion of funds in sovereign wealth. So I think it's an idea that can actually support investments, particularly in startups.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Yemisi. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts, I believe that if we must grow Africa at the speed at which we want Africa to grow, the continent, that each of the countries must be intentional to bring out certain amounts of money to fund SME ideas that are not properly formed yet. Now, because if we don't fund ideas that are not properly funded yet, we will not have new products. So I believe that it should just be like, it could be 0.1% of the total fund for the year that is set aside to just identify novel concept. Now, these are concepts. I mean, most products we have today came from concept. An aeroplane was built from concept. The cars we have were built from concept. Most things that are successful today started from a concept. And because Africa, we are lacking in technology, we are lacking in the resource to make concepts come to reality. We need to be intentional to provide funds where a young person who has a brilliant idea can go and pitch. Even if it's just one that is successful out of the 10, let's take it as our loss, but that one that is successful is going to definitely move Africa forward. So I believe that it's something we need to be intentional about. I also believe that the large corporates also have a role to play in this, in that when some people struggle through the concept and they're able to start, and then they start small. I believe that the large corporates should also put aside, even if it's, like I said, maybe 1%, 0.1% of a large corporate is still a lot of money. You know what numbers these guys turn around. Now, if they also use this to promote those that have moved from this concept to maybe an SME stage and they can see future in it, they can provide funding for such SMEs in form of grants. Now, grants are all available. Most times, the grant donors don't know who to give them to. But if there are a systematic or structured platforms where people can go throw their ideas, pitch their ideas, then funding from all over the world can find purpose in those kind of collective portal, I'll call it, where if I have, say, $1 million and I want to fund some SME in, say, Uganda, I should be able to have a place where I go and I'm able to say, give me 20 SMEs, I want to fund 3. And then you're able to make purpose. And when this business survive, sometimes they may say, oh, it's a grant. Sometimes they say it's a 10 years, you pay back or something. But something that is easy for young, talented Africans to be able to express their dreams, express their innovations, which eventually is what is going to take us beyond where we are now, where we are 100% so dependent on so many technologies from other parts of the world.
Thank you very much. I like that idea. I guess people from the government, if you're in the room, this could be an idea which can be catalyzed by different governments and will solve some of your problem in terms of youth employment. Probably could be something to consider. And as you can hear, the banks are ready to contribute through raising funds into the capital markets and supporting such kind of a fund. The private sector players are willing to do so because it's potential expansion of their businesses, of profits. So it's a win-win for everybody. Governments are getting the jobs they're looking for, and the private sector players are getting the expansion of their businesses and hopefully improvement of their returns. This session comes to an end. Thank you very much for the amazing panelists into this SME financing session. Thank you very much.